4. It's the 4th episode of Primetime Preps. And I'm here, Brad Caldwell, as you know. Bill Harshaw is sitting next to me, and we're glad that you're joining us on all of the ESPN social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and then SoundCloud, iTunes, and all of those other beautiful things that we're on.
You like our new toy that we got?
I like it, man. The Russellville Cyclones did good for us, man. Coach Johnny Johnson over there at the athletic director at Russellville, he got us this bad boy, Russellville Cyclones. We're glad to have that in. And, hey, look, you can give us your team's swag, and we'll display it for you. And, hey, look, get your team a little bit of pub. Eventually, back here behind us, we're going to have some logos and decals and all that. Of course, that's once Bill finishes transitioning in life like he's doing right now. And if I can keep from getting stung in the head by yellow jackets like I did last week, and just living life, man. Lots of things going on.
I mean, that's what it's all about. Just kind of take one thing at a time and roll with the punches or the stings, as it may be in your case. But definitely a good week.
Yeah,
it's a really fun week. Arkansas.
Yes,
who saw that coming? There is breaking news on that, by the way. Yeah, there is. That Arkansas just intercepted Ole Miss.
Lane Kiffin had a great tweet the other day about helping Hudson Clark get a scholarship. I mean, he's not wrong, is he?
No, he's not wrong. But, that was an incredible ball game, talking to the Razorbacks. You sit there, and I was trying to count those interceptions as the game went on. I was like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi.
Right. Got all the way to 6.
Got all the way to 6, and I'll tell you what, Hudson Clark, what a performance.
Awesome performance. Jalen Catalon, Hudson Clark, Grant Morgan. I mean, all those guys. Greenwood's own Grant Morgan, by the way.
That's right. Greenwood putting them out. We've talked earlier in the season with Jordan Hanna from Greenwood. So Greenwood known for putting out some athletes.
Absolutely. And so we're going to get right to it here. We're going to get what went down in prime time, just kind of looking back on last Friday night and what happened. And, of course, we were looking at one of our picks that we had this last week was Conway at Fort Smith. Northside Conway took away a 48-12 victory. And I'll tell you what, Conway is a very solid ball club in that 7A Central there. Ben Weiss threw for 272 and 4 touchdowns versus Northside last week. And Bryce Bohannon had 4 receptions for 84 yards and a touchdown. Bill, these two are popping up all the time when we're talking about the Wampus Cats.
That's right. Every time we mention Conway, we're talking about these two guys right here. These two cats it's a great team. They hook up all the time, making things happen. And Ben Weiss, we're going to have to get him on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Conway is one of those teams right now. They're kind of a sleeper for a state title. I think that Bryant is kind of the odds-on favorite to win it, and then I think you've got North Little Rock right behind them. But, Conway and North Little Rock battled it out for a 39-37 game just a couple weeks back. So I really think that Conway's got an opportunity to play their way for and possibly into that state title game this year. So it's going to be real interesting to see it going forward about what happens in that 7A, because you got to throw Bentonville in as well with that, and Bentonville did take Conway down pretty early in the season, but I think Conway may be playing a little better right now.
You're absolutely right, but you said one key phrase there just a second ago. You got to get through Bryant. Somebody, it doesn't have to be Conway, but in the course of those playoffs, somebody is going to have to take Bryant down, and that's the big question.
And we're not going to touch on a lot of that, but Bryant won 70-0 in a 7A ball game last week, 70-0. Now that's the new high school over there, Southwest, and Daryl Patton's going to get that thing going. They're going to be good. They have put all the resources out there, but 70-0. I mean, in a 7A ball game, unbelievable. Jonesboro takes down West Memphis 38-16. I don't even know how to say this name here. I don't want to mess it up, but it's Akabo. That's what I'm going to go with. Riker Akabo, the quarterback.
It could be Acebo.
The quarterback at Jonesboro threw for 251 and 2 touchdowns. Tight end Connor Clark had 10 receptions for 94 yards and a touchdown. And Kevon Pointer's a name over there in Jonesboro that you need to get to know. He's a good player. His brother or cousin, Marquise Pointer, played basketball for the Hurricane not too long ago, playing Division I basketball, or was. I don't know if he's still in it or not, but a very athletic family there. Harrison, Bill, 48-16 winners over Valonia last week.
You know, in Harrison, those Goblins, they are showing to be a pretty tough contender. We'll talk about more in depth about Harrison as they are traveling to Morrilton. That game is in Morrilton, right?
Yes, the game is in Morrilton. It's going to be a tough place to win there. But, you know, Harrison's been the team in that 5A West over the last 2 years this is the third season, that have kind of been head and shoulders above the rest. Harrison, 2 years back, gave Pulaski Academy all they wanted in a semifinal game there, and I believe it was at Harrison. Game ended up being 75-54, but I believe that Harrison had a lead in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, against one of those teams one of those PA teams that we felt like was unbeatable.
And Valonia, you know, they're a good ball club.
They are a good ball club.
So, you know, with Harrison stepping in and handling that 48-16,
you know,
that was a big win.
And the battle of the quarterbacks there, Austin Myers and Cole Keelan. I think Cole Keelan might have come away with the upper hand there for the Goblins. 19 of 24, 362 and 4 touchdowns, 23 rushes, 162 and a touchdown for the Goblins. So Harrison used a 20-0 second quarter to take that victory and kind of strolled into the end there, 48-16. Robinson and Malvern. Malvern took it under the chin, 35-13. Robinson only had a 7-6 lead at halftime. You know, they're playing against the big sophomore kid from Malvern, Cedric Simmons. Simmons has got the offer from Kansas right now. I think there's more to come with him for sure.
I mean, Ced Simmons has been a primetime performer of ours already this year. And, you know, Robinson was able to keep him in bay, 180 yards on 33. Let's see, Simmons had 180 passing yards and 33 rushing yards on 15 attempts last week. So the Senators did a great job of containing him.
They did. And we'll have Aaron Weatherford on here in the next, segment 3, I should say. And he's going to talk a little bit about Cedric Simmons and Malvern and Southwest Arkansas in the 4A7 and big game coming up against with Gerd and Poen in the 2A. So we've got some Southwest Arkansas flow going on right now. We want to get to one that we were at, Bill. We were actually calling the Pottsville-Waldron game this week. Of course, you know, those two teams are really not on very many radars right now, but really we had to bring this one to you because of a primetime performance that we'll talk about later on in the show from a young man for Pottsville named Elijah Bradley.
And, you know, Elijah Bradley, you know, we've been talking about him as we do those games for Pottsville. And Elijah, he's very explosive. He always likes to make that first guy miss. And if he can get into open territory and open field and he gets that space, he is very, very dangerous. And he was able to make that happen against, Waldron last week. So a really, really big performance by Elijah Bradley.
50-42 victory for Pottsville in overtime. Let's go to Elijah right now as he interviewed with Bill after the ball game.
And Elijah Bradley, on senior night, it's a big night to be able to come out and perform. You have a lot of teammates that have been watching from home tonight. What do you say to those guys?
I love y'all, man. We did it for y'all. I mean, we just came out. We knew that we didn't get to play for 2 weeks, so we just coming out and we nailed it.
You know, coming into tonight's ball game, a lot of people expected, you know, the more of the passing attack that we've seen most of the season long. Was this something that was scripted, kind of the Elijah Bradley show tonight?
Yeah, really. We just get Elijah the ball. We ran Dallas about, I don't know, half of that 32, 40-something carries, bro. And we just ran Dallas. I'm sore, cut up, bro.
Great block.
Yes, sir.
You definitely did have a lot of great blockers tonight. Those big guys down front were definitely creating some good seams for you.
Sir, I'm so proud of my linemen, bro. Like, they went out there and just showed out. You know? I'm very grateful for that.
Well, you know, with having these 2 weeks off, you know, there was some speculation. You know, we don't really go too much into it, but speculation that, were we even going to have a game tonight? And what were your thoughts with that coming into tonight's game?
I mean, if we weren't going to have the game, I was going to be really upset. But when we heard that we were having the game, we were like, do it for our players that are quarantined and just go out there and play.
Well, next week we are going on the road down to Ozark. Have you looked ahead to them at all, and what do you know about them?
They're pretty slim good. We just got to get out there and do what we do best.
Well, I know it's getting kind of cold. I know.
Well,
that's it.
That's it.
That's it. So, I mean, we went on to talk a little bit about next week's game against Ozark. It's not really entirely relevant to last week's performance, but definitely a big-time primetime performance by Elijah Bradley last week. Impressive performance.
Yes, and man, we've got quite a show for you here. We've got the state's leading offensive player, Cam Turner, coming up on the Giroux and Associates hotline coming back after this. But I want to tell you, if you're looking for Medicare, if you know somebody that's looking for Medicare, call Giroux and Associates, and they will take care of you. And coming up after the break, we've got Cam Turner joining us on the Giroux and Associates hotline.
Here, in the heart of the River Valley, is St. Mary's Regional Health System. Here is the area's most comprehensive range of medical services, along with advanced treatment options and responsive emergency care. Here is our team of more than 900 professionals who bring healthcare to life through people caring for people. And it is here where you can count on St. Mary's to always be, because to us, community matters. For more than 90 years, our investment in our community has been unmatched, and today that couldn't be stronger. St. Mary's, we're here for you.
Joining us on the Giroux and Associates hotline is Rivercrest quarterback Cam Turner, who is the state's leader in total yardage. Cam, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me on the show. How are y'all doing today?
Doing wonderful, man. You lead the state in total yardage, 2,700 total yards. You've got 1,700 passing. As we were just looking, you've got 600 more yards than you had last season. And you are, really on pace to kind of obliterate all of the records that you set last year. What has it been like this year versus last year? Why are you so much better this year versus last year?
Last year, basically, it was just a learning season for me. I wasn't really focused on reading the defense. I started focusing on reading defense and everything came to me. This summer I made a statement on an interview that said I was one of the best in the state. So I've just been living up to what I said.
There you go. You definitely have been living up to it. You've been one of our primetime performers. Now you got our attention with the game where you caught a touchdown pass, you rushed a touchdown, and you threw for a couple touchdowns in that win a couple weeks back. Tell us a little bit about that game and the receiving touchdown that you got for 73 yards.
Last year they beat us very bad. Like, it was raining and everything. So we took the coach was like, we're gonna get revenge from them. Before the game, they were saying that they owned us. So they put a little fuel to the fire. We've been practicing the play that we ran for like a couple of weeks, and that we finally had the chance to run it against them. So basically, I don't know. I was scared, to be honest, to catch the ball. That's something I don't do often. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And your team is 7-0 on the season, and you guys have had some pretty good wins. Pocahontas, you beat them. That was a conference favorite coming in. You've beaten Jonesboro Westside just recently. You beat Osceola last week. You threw for 400-plus yards last week. Tell us a little bit about your win last week against Osceola.
They're a very physical team. And like, they're a rivalry, so their game is heated. Before the game, I just feel like I had a chip on my shoulder because I played with them, and then like I got voted off of the team. So I feel like I had to do what I had to do that game. You know, I got a great receiver, Keyshawn Scott. You know, he caught every pass I threw to him. He had a great game.
Yeah, he had over 300 yards receiving against Osceola. So let's talk a little bit of recruiting here. Tell us a little bit about who's looking at you and, who's offered you scholarships.
I have 3 offers from East Central University, Northeastern State University, and Arkansas Baptist. I've been talking to a lot of coaches lately. The best, I'll be getting recruited by Lamar University in Texas, and I've been talking to Henderson and Arkansas State. I'm at Arkansas Tech.
And you got who are your solid offers?
Northeastern State University, Arkansas Baptist, and East Central University.
And, if everything went exactly the way that Cam Turner wanted it to go, where would you end up going?
Arkansas.
The University of Arkansas. What do you like about Arkansas?
I did a visit there last year. I love the environment. I got to meet Coach Sam Pittman for the first time. I feel like I like what he doing with the program. I like the players. I know a couple of people that go there. Just a great environment.
Now, if you were telling Coach Sam Pittman and some of these people who don't know who Cam Turner is, because let's be honest, I mean, up until just a few weeks ago, these guys in here, me and Bill, we didn't know who Cam Turner was. Tell us what the best attributes are of your game.
Playmaking. Since I was young, I stepped up in 9th grade. I was leading the tackles throughout the playoffs. And on the state championship game, I was the leading tackler. The year after that, I took Osceola to the state championship. And then basketball, I was one of the lead scorers in basketball. Took us to the state championship. So I'm just a playmaker all around. I learn quick, and I work hard.
It shows up the fact that you are leading the state in total offense with 2,700 yards of total offense so far this season. Still got 3 games left. You're putting out eye-popping numbers right now for the Rivercrest Colts. What do you want to see for your team this year as the season progresses? You guys seem to like you're in a really good spot right now.
I just want to see us stay together as a team. With everything going on, everybody just stay together, stay healthy, stay out the way, and continue to work hard.
Now, you guys have Gosnell this week on Friday, and then you've got Truman the next week, but then that big one lies ahead of you here on November the 6th with Blytheville. What do you think about the teams you got left on your schedule?
I hopefully the recruits there watching Travell, he's a great player. Maybe I can get some of that spotlight that he's getting, and then I played my best with the biggest game, so Blytheville, I'll be at my best.
Now that is going to be one matchup because he was talking about Travell Northern, I believe is his name, and he had one of the best games in the state a couple of weeks back where he threw for over 400, he rushed for 100, and he had 6 touchdowns, which we're seeing a lot of eye-popping numbers when it comes to touchdowns. This year, we've got several on the Primetime performers this week, and you are one of those Primetime performers for sure, Cam. We really appreciate you joining us here on the Giroux and Associates Hotline.
Thank you.
All right, that is Cam Turner joining us on the Giroux and Associates Hotline, and we'll be back with more Primetime Preps right after this.
Here, in the heart of the River Valley, is St. Mary's Regional Health System. Here is the area's most comprehensive range of medical services, along with advanced treatment options and responsive emergency care. Here is our team of more than 900 professionals who bring healthcare to life through people caring for people. And it is here where you can count on St. Mary's to always be, because to us, community matters. For more than 90 years, our investment in our community has been unmatched, and today that couldn't be stronger. St. Mary's, we're here for you.
On the Jerome and Associates hotline is Aaron Weatherford of 42 Sports and the Countrywide Football Show. Aaron, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man, appreciate you having me on. Love the show and hope to see it grow within the coming weeks.
And like I said, we'll try to have you tell everybody about what you're doing at the end of the segment here. Let's talk a little bit about 4A7 football. 4A7 football is one of the tougher conferences in the state. You know, you can rank it up there. I know that 7A Central right now is probably taking the cake. And then you've got the 6A West is probably right there with that. Obviously, you know, 7A West is always tough as well. But the 4A7, you know, even for a smaller conference, a 4A conference, is like the SEC of the 4A right now. Let's talk a little bit about what's shaking out in the 4A7.
So right now, basically, the top 4 teams in the 7-4A are tied for first. All 4 of those teams have one loss in conference play. The number 5 team in that conference, in my opinion, is Arkadelphia. Arkadelphia did miss three of their conference games, including games against Joe T and Nashville. Those were 3 games that could have decided Arkadelphia's fate. They're there. And then the last 3 finish out with Bauxite, Fountain Lake, and Harmony Grove, those 3 teams. Bauxite kind of going through a change right now with their offense and coaching. New head coach there in a new system. You know, Bauxite is accustomed to running the football, dead T style, wing T type of offenses. And they're now switching solely to the spread. So they're going to have some growing pains this year, but I expect Bauxite to be back here within the next 2 years. And then Fountain Lake and Harmony Grove. Fountain Lake also rebuilding a program that was once dominant. Going to be a rough, I think, couple of years, but they've got a lot of players coming up from junior high and some of the even Pee Wee school teams coming up as well. And then Harmony Grove, it's not going to be a good year for them. Not very much size up front. And that's really hard to compete in the 7-4A when you don't have any size up front. I believe their heaviest offensive lineman weighs just above 200 pounds. So going back to the top 5 teams, Malvern, I think, is that number 1 team right now. Their only 2 losses of the season were 3. Sorry about that. They did lose last week to Joe T. Robinson. Their other 2 losses coming against Lake Hamilton, who could probably be playing 6A West Conference title, and then Lakeside, who might be playing for that 5A South title as well. They were in the game last week with Joe T. Cedric Simmons passed last week. He did a really good job. You know, he's on the season. He's got over 1,300 yards passing and currently sits at 12 touchdowns. Actually got an offer last week from the University of Kansas as a sophomore. So one of the more upcoming athletes in Arkansas. And number 2,
let me stop you right there, Aaron, about Cedric. Let's talk a little bit about him before we keep going. Cedric is a kid that is one that a lot of people don't know about. He did get a Division I offer. Tell us a little bit about Cedric Simmons and his game.
Yeah, so Cedric has been he's in his 2nd year as a starter for the varsity squad at Malvern. He started last year as a 9th grader.
Wow.
And as a 9th grader, I thought he played more like a junior or a senior, to be honest. I got to watch him play Glen Rose in week 1 of last year and this year. And he was really sharp in both of those games, even coming off a COVID-riddled offseason that we didn't know what was going to happen. And he's done well through the past couple of games. You know, he's, like I just mentioned, tossed for 12 touchdowns already. He's currently sitting at 1,359 yards on the season, which is just astronomical for a sophomore. And he also leads the team in rushing, 441 yards on the ground as well. So this is a kid a lot of teams, I think, in 4A need to watch out for. I think this kid, he's going to, you know, bring in a lot more D1 offers. And he could be, you know, that next kid out of Malvern. There's always one kid, you know, out of Malvern every decade. And I think Cedric's going to be the guy in this 2023 class, you know, of Arkansas. There's a lot of kids in this 2023 class that are really good, and I think he's going to be at the top of that class.
So we were working our way up through the 4A7 there. You're talking about, you know, we've got Robinson, who is probably the name team of that group right now. Nashville right up there with them. Arkadelphia, back-to-back state championships 2 years ago and 3 years ago now. But you're saying that you feel like that there's another team that could be above them, which you said was Malvern, right? Didn't you say that?
Yeah, Malvern and Ashdown. Those two teams, I think, are really looking sharp. And I did say earlier, Arkadelphia will be traveling to Ashdown this week. So they could make me eat my own words. That's very possible. That's happened many times already this season. But, yeah, I think that'll really tell the tale of who Arkadelphia is this year. They do have 3 wins on the season, or 4 wins on the season, 3 of those coming against higher power 5A schools, I believe Hot Springs, Greenbrier, and even Camden Fairview. So they might have already done, but when you don't get to play 3 games in conference play, it's really tough to tell.
And a couple weeks back, Robinson went to Nashville, lost 36-35, and then you said last week Nashville loses to Ashdown. What do you make of the parity of that conference?
Man, we see this. It's like this every year. I mean, last year we saw the Triangle 3 with Joe T defeating Nashville, and then Arkadelphia going to Joe T and beating Joe T. And then I believe Nashville went down to Arkadelphia and beat Arkadelphia. So I think we're kind of seeing the same thing this year. Malvern will host Arkadelphia this year in the last regular season last week of the regular season. So we'll get to see that battle out. Malvern does have to travel to Nashville next week after this week's, I think, homecoming game with Fountain Lake. So we're not done seeing what this conference has to offer. We've got 2 more really good games that include the Malvern Leopards. Ashdown, like I said, they're another team that's going to have another say. They've got a chance to beat Joe T as well. So this conference is fun to cover year in and year out, especially, and I always enjoy it.
So 4A7 is great, and there's a lot of great things going on there. But there's a big game going on in the 2A down there in southwest Arkansas with Poen and Gurdon. So let's talk a little bit about that game, as that's 2A game of the week by a lot of people.
Yeah, Poen coming in this game 7-0 on the season. It's the best start in school history. If you don't know a lot about Poen, they're just south of Malvern, not too far, about maybe 10 miles. The Indians are, like I said, they started varsity football back in 2010, and this is the best team that I have seen come out of Poen in the last 10 years, maybe 6 or so. But the task is not easy this week. Gurdon, the Go Devils, are 6-1 on the season. Not 6-1. Their only loss of the season was to Prescott. I'm not sure on the record. With 2A scheduling this year, you've got teams that are not playing and teams that go to 8-man, so it's really, really hard to remember schedules. But anyway, Gurdon, number 2 team, I believe, in the 42 Sports Power Rankings, mainly because of the guy, the number 3, Jamison Threadgill. Jamison Threadgill, I believe, is one of the best players in the state of Arkansas. There's not a lot of people who know his name. If you haven't, I highly recommend you go check out Jamison Threadgill. He is the leading rusher for Gurdon right now, and he's basically their workhorse. They've also got some other guys. They got Warwick Anderson at fullback, Armando Harper at the other tailback position, and then DJ Ann at quarterback, who has played 4 years as a quarterback at Gurdon. Gurdon runs a strong wishbone offense. They're going to run the ball, and then all of a sudden they'll pass the ball over you. And Prescott Poen on the other hand, they're more spread out. They got Jackson Carter at quarterback, who is taking over right now. Brandon Sanchez, they just switched him from running back to wide receiver, and he has done a tremendous job there. And then Blake Rhodes, who has been moved to the running back spot, is now leading the Indians in rushing so far this season. Rhodes only a junior, and I think he's already eclipsed maybe 1,000 yards on the season. So these Poen Indians are coming in trying to shock the state. Poen is currently ranked number 4 in the 42 Sports Power Rankings. So this is a big-time matchup of number 2 and number 4. This game is at Gurdon, and Gurdon is an awesome football town. They're one of those, small town Arkansas teams who's going to show up to Friday nights at the Go Devil Stadium, and everything else in the town will be closed down. So this is going to be a really fun matchup. I believe 42 Sports is going to be there covering that game. So I can't wait to see this game, honestly.
All right, so tell us a little bit about 42 Sports and the Countrywide Football Show.
So, well, it's the Countywide. I told you that's my fault.
Yeah.
It's the Countywide Football Show. What I do, I've been running this for about a year and a half now. I cover all of the Hot Spring County teams. That's from football, basketball, baseball, softball. I can get into more if people ask me. I'd normally do that. Mainly covering Malvern, Glen Rose, Bismarck, Magnet Cove, Poen, and even Washington, who's a small 1A school just outside of Arkadelphia. And then 42 Sports, I believe, started about 5 years ago. That was started by Alan Russell. He is the main sole creator of 42 Sports. We just eclipsed 16,000 followers this year. Their main goal, though, is to cover the classifications from 4A all the way down to 1A, 4A to 2A in football, obviously, and then 8-man football as well. We try to get as much attention out there to some of the smaller classification schools that aren't getting enough attention, and to athletes as well. One of those athletes, like Jaquez Cross from Fordyce, I know you guys have talked about him a little bit on your show in the past, but he's another kid that I think is being overlooked in Arkansas. I think he's easily a D1 talent, and there's many, many other players that 42 Sports tries to get as much attention out there as possible for these kids. Like I said, a lot of these kids are in small towns, and the big schools sometimes don't feel like driving to the small schools and really looking that hard, and that's what we're all about. 42 Sports is all about small towns, helping these teams get attention and getting some looks out there to some bigger schools. There's a lot of I respect all the people that cover 7A, 5A, and 6A. I think that's great too. But that's what 42 Sports is all about. We cover 4A to 2A, and then all the way to 1A in basketball as well.
All right. Well, Aaron, I appreciate you joining us here on the Giroux and Associates hotline, and we'll keep up with what's going on with you down in Southwest Arkansas.
Appreciate you having me on, man. Y'all have a good one.
All right. Thank you. That was Aaron Weatherford joining us here on the Giroux and Associates hotline, and we'll be back with more Primetime Preps right after this.
Here, in the heart of the River Valley, is St. Mary's Regional Health System. Here is the area's most comprehensive range of medical services, along with advanced treatment options and responsive emergency care. Here is our team of more than 900 professionals who bring healthcare to life through people caring for people. And it is here where you can count on St. Mary's to always be, because to us, community matters. For more than 90 years, our investment in our community has been unmatched, and today that couldn't be stronger. St. Mary's, we're here for you.
Welcome back into segment 4 and the final segment of Primetime Preps, and we want to thank Cam Turner and Aaron Weatherford for joining us on the Giroux and Associates hotline. And again, if you want, or you or somebody is looking for Medicare, and you coming up on the age of 65, somebody that's coming up on age of 65, Mike Giroux and his team can help you. Call them at 479-567-5558. They will take care of you. Bill, awesome show so far. Awesome to get a chance to talk to Cam Turner. Aaron Weatherford brought us the 4A7 and talked a little bit about big matchup that we've got coming up. And we're going to get right to our under-the-radar games for this week and our picks and our
All
primetime
that
performers.
fun stuff. Yeah, the primetime performers. Stay tuned for that. There's maybe some surprises coming your way, but definitely some worthy kids going to get some recognition here in a little bit.
So under the radar games, we've got Springdale at Fayetteville, the Battle of the Bulldogs, Red Dogs versus Purple Dogs. Two teams that are really struggling for wins this year. Springdale at 2-5, Fayetteville at 1-5, and from what I'm understanding, a little bit people getting a little restless around Fayetteville. They're not used to being in this position.
They're not. They're used to being able to kind of run the territory and do whatever they want to do. And head coach Casey Dick, a name that would be very familiar to a lot of Razorback fans. Casey Dick is the head coach at Fayetteville now, and is not getting the performances and the results that he's been looking for out of the Bulldog team. So Fayetteville fans are a little bit restless, and rightfully so. It's a big rivalry game. This is going to be a big game for not only Fayetteville but Casey Dick. You have a tough quarterback in Landon Phipps. For Springdale, he's definitely a good passer. He can also run it forward, so he's not afraid to pull it down and run. And so that's going to be the key for Fayetteville is, can you control Landon Phipps? And that's going to be a really big ball game. It's not one of the ones that carries all of the stars with it in terms of, hey, this is number 1 and number 2 or anything like that. But if you like a good ball game, one that, it's a rivalry game, and anytime you have a rivalry game, you can throw records out the window, you can throw rankings out the window. That's anybody's ball game, and that's the type of game you're going to see up in Fayetteville when Springdale comes to town.
It's going to be a lot of fun there. Red Dogs, Purple Dogs there in Fayetteville coming up this weekend. This one probably would be the game of the week if Bryant wasn't so dang good.
That's right.
Bryant 6-0 versus Cabot 5-1. Cabot comes in just really kind of off the radar in this game because nobody thinks that Bryant can be beat. Of course, Bryant is very good, and they've earned that right. Bryant has scored on all 6 of its first half possessions against Southwest. We talked about that earlier in the show. They won the game 70-0. They are on a 24-game winning streak. They're the Hornets. It is right now they're the high school football capital of the state of Arkansas.
That's right. Bryant has won 24 straight football games. That's a big one. But I mean, look, if Cabot can get something done, that may be the takedown that we were talking about in segment 1 as far as who can take down Bryant. And right now we don't even know. But if anybody can, we've heard the name Tyler Gee several times on this show. He's been a top performer for us. He is a stud. Gee passed for 6 touchdowns in the second half versus Conway in a failing effort, but it was a great comeback. And nonetheless, Tyler Gee is definitely a big time performer for Cabot, but Bryant's just very, very explosive.
UCA commitment, Tyler Gee. North Little Rock going to Fortsmouth Northside. Fortsmouth Northside got handled pretty good against Conway. I think that North Little Rock is a heavy favorite in this ball game as well. Fortsmouth Northside having to play in the 7A Central versus playing in the 7A West, how different their fortunes might be. But North Little Rock they score 41 points per game, and again played a Conway team, beat them at Conway 39-37, so they have proved their mettle for sure.
That's right, and you did that at Conway, so I mean
Yes.
that in and of itself speaks volumes to me when you can take down a very talented Conway team on their own stadium. That's always a good type of it looks good on the records. If it comes down to seeding or something like that, that may play a role. I mean, look what they did against Conway. But, they do put up a lot of points, 41 weekly. We mentioned that. But, North side, conversely, they give up some points. They've given up, 48 points in its 2 losses
Right.
Against Bryant and then against Conway
Right.
last week. So, when they play top opponents, they are able to give up some. So to me, the defense would be a little on the questionable side.
Yeah. Benton at Greenwood, we're going to talk about that one later in our picks. And moving on, Sylvan Hills is a team that not a lot of people are talking about right now. They're traveling to El Dorado. El Dorado is now 2-3 after starting off 0-3. This one is big time for seeding in that 6A East.
It really is. This is a big game in that conference because you're looking at a 4-3 Sylvan Hills team and a 2-3 El Dorado team, and both of them have something to prove. in the grand scheme of things. So, I mean, Sylvan Hills, probably the favorite in that ball game, but this game is at El Dorado, and you never know what happens when you go on the road.
It's tough. It's tough to travel that far as well. I mean, El Dorado, way down there. They've got to play in some conference, and so last year was the West. This year it's the East. There's not enough teams down in the South to make a South Conference. So anyway, El Dorado taking on Sylvan Hills as one of our under the radar games of the week. Moving on, you've got Mountain Home at Siloam Springs. Mountain Home is a much improved team. We've mentioned before Ryan Mallett, an assistant coach over there. They trailed Benton 21-7 last week. Ended up losing that game 35-7. Bryce McKay is a kid that a lot of people are talking about at Mountain Home. He connected on a 50-yard touchdown pass to Logan Walker in the second quarter. And then they managed 294 yards on Benton last week. Benton is hitting stride, though, Bill.
They really are. Benton is definitely one of the top teams to look at. Benton was able to – they let go of Gage Hirschberger, 140 yards with Benton last week.
Yes.
That was definitely a good performance from Mountain Home's tailback. So what are they going to do this week against a good Siloam Springs team?
Siloam Springs, they're a very good team. And, again, talking about conferences, Siloam Springs and Lake Hamilton are in the same conference. 42-19 loss at Lake Hamilton last week. Hunter Talley accounted for 3 touchdowns, including a pair of fourth-quarter touchdowns, which the game had probably gotten out of hand at that point. Siloam Springs is a team that is a good team, but, man, that 6A West is rugged.
Yeah, and quarterback Hunter Talley, he can not only pass the ball, but 11 of 17 for 160 yards. He also ran for 81, so you got to contain him, and that always makes it difficult for the defense.
Defending state champion Searcy traveling to Jonesboro in probably the game of the year in the 6A East. Searcy is 4-3. Jonesboro is 4-2, and that's Kyler Tingler completed 10 of 16 for 77 yards against Pine Bluff. And Daniel Perry rushed for 24 times for 138 yards and 2 scores. Daniel Perry's the guy that Wes Moore mentioned to us in the first show that we had. Searcy is still maybe not quite as good as they were last year, but still a good ball club there. And they're going to be a formidable foe for Jonesboro.
You got that right, but we talked about earlier about the Razorbacks, ironically, and that was a theme not only in college football but in high school as well, as Jonesboro had interception returns from Braylon Moore and Brody Williams last week, a total of 3 picks for Williams. In last week's win against West Memphis, they won 38-13. And, we mentioned Acebo earlier, 22 of 35 for 251 and 3 touches. So it's a good quarterback at the helm. And looks like he's got a couple of receivers that he can reach out to. So Jonesboro, a lot of weapons.
Another big-time game this week is Pulaski Academy at Little Rock Christian. We'll get to that in our picks. Moving on from that one, we've got Harrison at Morrilton. I think a sneaky good game there. Morrilton has improved ever since their loss to Russellville, and Morrilton is always a solid coach team there by Coach McNabb over there. He does a good job always keeping Morrilton in it. Last year, Jacoby Criswell was the best player in the state. Morrilton had him, and I think everybody expected Morrilton just to fall off the cliff, but that's not how Cody McNabb rolls over there.
No, definitely not. Cody McNabb, former coach locally. Was it Russellville he was?
I think he was an assistant at Russellville.
Assistant at Russellville, so, we definitely have seen him a few times, but the biggest question, you mentioned Jacoby Criswell, coming in that quarterback role, you have a sophomore in Demarius Martin taking on for the quarterback role, and that's a big key. Anytime you have a sophomore starter, hasn't always seen the speed of the game, what's going to happen when a good Harrison team comes to town? They're 6-1.
It doesn't spell good things.
It doesn't
usually
spell good things, so that's my biggest thing. Jackson Mole, definitely takes the load for Morrilton, running for almost 500 yards in the past 2 games alone. So, that's a workhorse and definitely a good man to have on your team.
Moving on to the eastern side of the state, you got Greene County Tech at Valley View. That's a big-time game over there in the 5A East. You've kind of got Wynn as the top team, and then there's battle for playoff positioning going on right now between Greene County, Tech, and Valley View, they're definitely in that. Valley View lost to Brooklyn last week. Brooklyn is also in that battle. And Greene County Tech senior David Williams racked up 3 touchdowns last week against Nettleton. Moving on, Greenbrier and Farmington, another kind of similar type game to Greene County Tech and Valley View. Those 4 are really similar type teams. You'd be interested to see if they ended up matching up somewhere down the road. Greenbrier is a very potent offense.
Definitely. We've seen some bright spots out of Greenbrier, specifically last week. A 1-point win on the road at Morrilton with junior Nick Hewitt, I guess, running for 229 yards and 4 touchdowns. So that's a performance. And Nick Hewitt getting things done for Greenbrier, so he's going to be tough to contain.
Shiloh Christian and Elkins, there is Shiloh is the top dog up there in that smaller schools. Elkins is a team that has moved up. Way back in the day, I remember when Elkins was a little 2A school.
Right.
And now they're a 4A school, got a beautiful facility over there at Elkins. They're really getting their first chance, ranked 17th overall at 6-0, so I don't know that they're getting quite the respect that they want or need, but I don't know that they're going to get it looking at Shiloh, whose only loss is to Sand Springs, Oklahoma, a 6A team. They're out of Oklahoma.
And history, you mentioned history real quick. Siloam has won 5-0 against the Elks, so Shiloh Christian has that on their side as well. So that's one of our picks. So we'll talk about more about that game later. Another game that's kind of under the radar, Brad. Dardanelle on the road down Highway 71, that long drive down to Mena.
Yes, and that's pretty much for the number 2 spot there in the 4A4. Dardanelle has got beat by Ozark pretty handily the last time that the Sand Lizards were on the field. Mena actually upset Ozark last week, which was kind of unexpected.
And they did that also, I believe, in the final minutes of the game, and that's not the first time that Mena has done that. If you watched episode 1, we actually discussed Max Montgomery and his Bearcat bomb to beat Waldron. So Mena looks to be the heart attack team of the state, where they want to come from behind and do something in the last minute, and those are always fun games to be at.
Oh, absolutely. Arkadelphia and Ashdown. Arkadelphia played last week for the first time in 5 weeks. Poor guys over there. They did thump.
They look good.
Yes.
They look good doing it. They took on Haskell Harmony Grove 54-19.
Yes, they did. Braden Thomas, 231 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, of course, Ashdown actually upset Nashville last week, which that 4A7 is crazy. Aaron Weatherford touched on that in the previous segment down there. It is a tough conference down there. We call it the SEC of
right.
4A. A game that nobody, I don't think, is talking about is Greenland and Cedarville. And this, it features 2 of the best running backs in the state.
Literally, I mean, if you look at Max Preps and look at who the top rushers in the state are, you're going to see number 1 and number 2. Number 1, Daryl Kadich. Number 2, Jed Dennis. So if you like rushing, and I know this guy here does, you like to go to those games and watch them run up and down the field with probably.
I just like a mix. I like a mix of offense.
I
just
do agree.
Everybody's just doing the same thing anymore, and so I like to see different offenses.
When I went to high school, we ran the wishbone, so I'm well familiar with we're going to line it up, and you know what we're going to do, and good luck stopping us. And that's what the type of ball game you're going to see from both of these teams with 2 stud running backs. So that's going to be one to watch.
Center Point at Glen Rose, that's going to be a tough game for Center Point. Always going to Glen Rose is very tough. The Beavers are just, they're a team that always makes it out first, second, third round of the playoffs every single year. I know that they won a state championship not too terribly long ago. Glen Rose senior tailback Ethan Taylor carried the ball 10 times for 79 yards last week versus Falk. And Center Point juniors Garrett Anderson and Dathan Vaughn lead Center Point defense that surrenders just 16 points per game. So it's going to be a cool matchup down there in Southwest Arkansas. But boy, Glen Rose is really tough to beat.
Glen Rose is always tough to beat, but the one thing that really kind of stands out to me a little bit is Center Point. That 16 points per week. That's a pretty impressive defense.
It's a good number
especially
these times.
Giving the conference that those guys are in. Right. That's a good stat to look at. But we already know Glen Rose are pretty much good at everything. So that'll be a big game.
A game that we're going to highlight here in just a minute, Poen at Gurdon. Big-time 2A ball game there, number 5, number 2 playing each other. But a game that probably nobody's talking about, Bigelow, a team that has really come out of nowhere this year, taking on Quitman. Quitman is a very potent offense, but boy, Bigelow right now, 40 points per game, only allowing 9.5.
That's it. I mean, anytime you're scoring more than you're giving up, you're doing something right. But listen, Bigelow, you talk about Bryant and 7A, who can beat them. Bigelow's looking to be that team in the 2A division. I think they're very underrated. I don't think, they're coming in. I think Hootens has them at like 8, I think, when you look at that. So, I mean, just kind of looking at who ranks who where. I think Bigelow may be a little on the underrated side. Quitman, they've given up a couple of games, but the thing is, they have William Litton, which we've talked about. He was on our show last week as one of our primetime performers. He had 323 yards passing, 3 touchdowns last week against Magazine, as well as 7 carries for 45 yards and an additional score. So he may be a one-man show. He does have a couple of intangibles, but Quitman, I think, is a quietly dangerous team.
All right, Bill. So where are we going here? Are we going primetime performers or the picks?
Yeah, we're going to go to the performers, I believe, aren't we?
All right, so let's go to our primetime performers as we look back at last week's best performances. And Elijah Bradley starts off, a guy that we saw personally up close and personal, 42 carries, 312 yards, 1 reception for 42 yards, and that big number on the side there, 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, what a performance by Elijah Bradley. I mean, nobody really saw that type of breakout performance from him. We knew it was definitely possible. We expected it, or at least I expected more of that threat to come through the air. However, he's going to take it on the ground. 42 carries. He's probably still sore from that, but 7 total touchdowns. What an outstanding performance by Elijah Bradley.
Cam Turner's the guy that you just heard from there in the Rivercrest Colts, and man, what a big-time player this kid is. 459 yards passing on 23 of 31, 14 carries, 73 yards, 7 touchdowns as well. Total, Turner is a guy that has improved greatly over last year. If you look at his numbers last year versus this, it is phenomenal, the improvement. And then, of course, his teammate Keyshawn Scott, 17 receptions, 323 of those, 459 yards.
They're showing out.
4 of those touchdowns over there at Rivercrest.
They are showing out. That is a great matchup when you get those two, on the field together. It's definitely 17, 323, and 4 touchdowns. That is a primetime performance by Keyshawn Scott. And, Cam Turner, he mentioned in the interview that, he's trying to prove himself. He thinks he's one of the best in the state, and these numbers kind of show he probably is.
He's getting some looks. I think there's some people out there that probably need to look at him a little bit closer. Maybe he doesn't play quarterback at the next level. Maybe he plays somewhere else. But he looks like a kid that may be the type of athlete that you want to maybe pick up late, or even give a walk-on spot to. I don't know if he would like to go to Arkansas and possibly walk on. He said that was one of his favorite team. He wanted to go there. Loved what was going on up there on the hill. So we're going to keep close tabs on what Cam's doing.
The thing about Cam is he can rush, he can pass. He showed last week he can catch, or rather the week before, I guess it was. So we're looking at you, Sam Pittman. Give this guy a call. Give him a call for sure. Take a look at his stuff, because I think Cam Turner is somebody that we could use up on the hill.
If you offer, he's taking.
That's right.
We'll say that. All right, Will Litton, 323 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 rushing, and 46 yards rushing for the Quitman Bulldogs. They're getting ready to take on Bigelow, as we touched on just a little bit earlier. That's going to be a fun matchup there. And we've got Garrett Brown. He keeps showing up here in the primetime performers, the Benton quarterback, 410 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Anytime you get 410 in a high school ball game, especially against the competition that Brown's playing against,
that's right.
It's big, and he's a junior.
So that means he's coming back. He's only going to get better. He's going to probably be on our show next season a lot. Garrett Brown, we've seen him in person, and he was very impressive in that game against Little Rock Parkview. So Brown's able to get things done.
Cole Keelan's the guy that we already talked about, 19 of 24, 362, 23 carries, 163, and 6 touchdowns for the Goblins of Harrison. Huge performance there in what is the what we feel like is the best team in the 5A West right now. I guess Morrilton's going to have something to say about that.
Yeah, let's see if Morrilton can contain Keelan, because he's able to get things done. We can see the stats here: 19 of 24 for 362, 6 total touchdowns.
Big time.
Hard to defend.
PA's Charlie Pfizer, 432 yards and 5 touchdowns last week. And did they travel to Texas last week?
They were in Tyler something.
Legacy.
That's
Tyler Legacy. PA goes to Tyler. Now, I want to tell you this. I went to a high school football game in Texas a couple years back at Highland Park. Went to the actual stadium there, one of the most historic high school football teams in the country. I went over there. PA went to Highland Park and ruined their 84-game home winning streak. It's been several years back now. And then they just go down to Texas and do it again. And let me tell you something. These Texas teams do not want to lose to Arkansas teams at all. They don't think that they should. And so when PA goes and sticks it to them, it's always kind of funny.
And you can say the same thing about those Oklahoma teams. They don't like you go to Jinx, Oklahoma, for example. They don't like losing to Arkansas. And Pulaski Academy looking good.
Lastly, we've got Ty Day of Hector as a big-time player, guy that we're pretty familiar with. 21 carries, 207 yards, 4 touchdowns. He is 4 yards shy of 1,000 on the season, and he leads the 2A in scoring.
Ty Day is definitely somebody that, if you like small-town football, this kid is exciting. He's electric. I've seen some of his highlights. Trey Johnson sends those out. Very good performer in Ty Day, and deserving of this recognition with those 4 touchdown carries last week.
So we're going to move on to our primetime picks as we get ready to close up shop here. And Bill, again, we feel like it's been a pretty good show, action-packed, lots of stuff to talk about. And again, we just hope that people will join us here on Primetime Preps throughout. We've got plenty of...
Send us some stuff.
There you go. Absolutely send us some stuff. Go to the Arkansas Sports Network, like the Arkansas Sports Network, and inbox us anything. We want primetime performers. I mean, heck, your guy should have been up there, but we don't know about all of these guys. It's hard to keep up with high school football as a whole. Somebody could be out there that had, who knows, 500 yards and 8 touchdowns for all we know. So let us know what's going on in your school and in your area.
A lot of times these coaches, certain entities like Max Preps, for example, relies on the coaches to come in, fill out that information, and let the community know, hey, this is what my quarterback did. And, if they are not updating their statistics on the website, it makes it harder for us to know about it. So let us know about it. You can send us all the stats you have. Send us any highlights you have. We'll be happy to use those as well.
Absolutely. So as we move on, we're going to go to the primetime picks. Final part of the show here. We got Benton at Greenwood. Number 1 versus number 2 in the 6A. Bill, possibly the best 2 teams in the 6A. We've got both got Greenwood. I know going to Smith Robinson Stadium there is just never a chore, or never easy. It's always a chore for the visiting team. I like Greenwood in this matchup.
I do as well. Greenwood is definitely the top team in the state, and for a reason. We've seen Benton in action. We know Garrett Brown is capable of producing primetime numbers. We mentioned his stats just moments ago. He's the all-time leading passer. He's completing 56% of his passes this season, and also has some good intangibles, some good guys that can run the football. But the thing is that Greenwood is able to get things done against really, really good, stiff competition. They have been suffering a little bit from the injury bug. They got some people that have not been playing lately. Now, we don't know if that's because of the actual physical injuries or sickness or illness. We don't know. But they have had a couple of players, Tayshawn Leader, Bo Asher, and Fletcher Gill, have missed several games this fall. So if any opportunity exists for somebody to get the victory, this is the week, I think, for it to happen. But that game is at Greenwood, and I'm going to have to pick Greenwood as well.
Yeah, it's tough, but if Benton goes in there and wins, it wouldn't shock me. Benton actually beat Greenwood last year, and who knows? Who knows what will happen there? But it's going to be a great ball game. We're going to be keeping our eye on that one. Searcy at Jonesboro. We both have Jonesboro. In fact, our picks are the same except for one here. Last week we differed.
Twisted my arm on that one too. Right?
We differed on one as well. We've got both have the Hurricane of Jonesboro.
We definitely have Jonesboro on that one. Jonesboro is definitely a tough team. Now, we know Searcy, the defending state champs, that's all well and good, but we know that teams change week to week or year to year. And so it's not like in college where you're more likely to keep players consistently. Kids graduate, they go on to college, and last year's team's not necessarily this year's team, but Jonesboro, 4-2 team, favorite in that one. The game is at Jonesboro. And, their defense is stifling. You had those 4 or 3 total picks, I guess, for Brody Williams and 4 altogether. Possibly depends on how we read those stats. But the defense is getting things done for Jonesboro, and I don't see that happening any differently against Searcy.
Yes, and Searcy's also had a coaching change, so they've had a lot of upheaval over there. Kenny Simpson, a guy from Batesville Southside, and one of the more renowned coaches in the state of Arkansas, took that program over. And so there's just been a lot of stuff that has been going on there over at Searcy, and it's a little bit of a different year. And, you don't see too many teams out of the East win either. So Searcy coming out of nowhere last year to win that one. Of course, congratulations to him. Great job over there. But it looks like that I feel like Jonesboro has the upper hand and the advantage this time. We've got a split here, Pulaski Academy at Little Rock Christian, and I'm just going to tell you right now, Pulaski Academy, if they're playing anybody, just about I'm picking them, maybe with the exception of Bryant. So in this matchup, unless Little Rock Christian proves me wrong, but Little Rock Christian is the only team really that has even beaten PA over the last 2 years, if you remember the state championship game last year, and then the regular season game last year. PA was able to, or 2 years ago on the state championship game, by the way. And in last year's regular season game, PA won, or Little Rock Christian won 2 in a row, I should say. And PA did get them back in the finals, though, last year.
Yeah, so it's a rivalry game. These two teams aren't very, don't like each other very well. But, I mean, this is going to decide not only the league title, but could also be a preview of the state championship. This is a game that, we saw it twice last year. We may see that game twice this season as well. But, looking at this game, I really like PA, but I didn't want to agree with you on all those picks. And I thought, well, if anybody's going to knock off PA, it's going to be Christian, because Christian, I mean, they got some guys. They got, the Dyer Jones guy, Corey Platt, 32 carries this year for 259 yards, 3 touchdowns on the season. So, I mean, and he also plays linebacker, 44 tackles, 2 interceptions, 3 recovered fumbles. He's a tough kid for Little Rock Christian. And, I think that if I'm going to pick an upset, that's what I'm going to go with. So that's why we're going to differ on this one.
And, we're the same on Harrison and Morrilton. Again, feel like that if this was last year, this was played at Morrilton, you got Jacoby Criswell, I think I'd go with Morrilton. But because it just Harrison has just taken that league over right now, seems to be head and shoulders above everybody else. I'm going with Harrison over Morrilton.
I agree. I mean, you have Cole Keelan in the backfield running the show for Harrison. We saw his performance this week, 4 touchdowns, added 2 more on the ground for a total of 6 touchdowns. The interesting thing from the Goblins is because of injuries that they've had, they've been running a lot more of those no-back sets, spreading it out, but still able to create those running lanes for him and the passing attack to go along with it.
Keelan is a guy that if Morrilton or anybody can figure out how to stop him, then you've got a great chance of winning that ball game. And the biggest game in 2A this week is the Poen Indians going to the Gurdon Go Devils. Go Devils! How about that one? Gurdon is just really fast. They're a very good team. I'm going to take Gurdon over Poen this week.
I agree with you on this one. I mean, I know Poen is 7-0. And they're definitely a good football team. That's no doubt about that. But this is going to decide the 5-2A title for one. It's a big matchup. What are the Nerves going to do? It's also going to have major playoff implications. So it's a very big game in the state, especially in the 2A side of things. But Gurdon has not really been tested at all since losing week 1 against Prescott. So they lost 42-36. It was a close game. Going up in classification to the 3A and taking on Prescott. But, their tailback, James Threadkill, he's got, I think, a total of 849 rushing yards, something like that. So he's definitely putting up some good numbers.
a big-time game down there in Southwest Arkansas. It's going to be a lot of fun to be down there. As Aaron Weatherford said earlier, kind of the place that you're talking about small-town high school football, that's the place that you want to be if you enjoy that, and I really do. I do enjoy small-town football. I enjoy big-town football. I enjoy Razorback football. I just enjoy football.
Yeah, give me that ball that's made out of pigskin, and I'm gonna be happy. I like the weather that happens when football's out there. That's one of the reasons I guess I like football is because it happens during the fall, and the fall is by far my favorite season. So, I don't know. I like the pigskin, and I like football. So it's definitely gonna be a lot of fun this week.
So again, reminding you, go to the Arkansas Sports Network on Facebook and like us, and let us know about what's going on with your teams. Big-time performers, big-time players, big-time games. Hey, keep us informed. We want to know what's going on. But we're going to say so long for now for this episode 4 of Primetime Preps, and we will see you next week.